SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom is a game I've talked about to death on this channel. Way back in September 2018, I posted my first video on the game. Then several months later, in April 2019, I posted yet another video on the game that I thought was the most extensive look at the game on YouTube. Then over a year later, in June 2020, I posted a video on the SpongeBob movie game where I compared it to Battle for Bikini Bottom. Then on the launch day of SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated, I posted a first impressions video on that game. If any of those videos sound interesting to you, you can watch that entire playlist of SpongeBob videos somewhere up there. But that's beside the point. If you saw my first impressions video on the game, you'll know I wasn't too big a fan of it when it came out, and after playing it all the way through, I have to say, my thoughts are pretty similar. SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated should not be added to your collection. It's a bad game, and a very bad remake, and I'm here to explain why. When doing my first impressions video, I focused on the first level of the game and mainly dove into two things: my thoughts on the visuals and how the game plays in comparison to the original, and after playing the game all the way through, I think my previous arguments should be elaborated upon. So, I stated that I really wasn't a big fan of the new art style, which I 100% stand by after completing the game. The character models just really throw me off. I don't like that they're the modern versions of these characters. The writing of the game feels straight out of the early days of SpongeBob, and seeing these lines come out of these shallow characters does not feel right. Classic SpongeBob and the gang are not the same characters we see in modern episodes of SpongeBob. All the characters have been simplified and flanderized to shallow versions of themselves. They don't feel like characters, they feel like traits. For trying to look like the modern renditions of these characters, I think they're great. There isn't really anything I'd change, but the problem is the fact that the characters in the game aren't the characters saying these lines. They flip this, and it harms the overall feeling of SpongeBob the game is trying to capture. I still think many of the areas look a little too detailed for SpongeBob. They aren't believable versions of the locations we've seen in the show. I used the example previously of all the grass and jellyfish fields being overly realistic and lively. That isn't how it is in the show. And like, all the memes and stuff sprinkled around the game just make these locations feel even less real. I mean, sure, it's a cool fan service, I guess, but no, why is meme Squidward in Squidward's dream? Why is the meme SpongeBob in Goo Lagoon Caves? Why is the fucking hibernation Sandy in the Poseidome? These totally break the immersion of the worlds. These don't feel natural. These feel like they were forced in for a cheap laugh and nothing more. I will admit, a lot of these areas do look really nice, but I'm not one who's willing to sacrifice performance for fancy visuals. I know playing the Nintendo Switch version is the only reason I'm encountering these issues, but that's not important. This is incredibly unoptimized, and that's inexcusable and frustrating. Things pop in and out of existence with ease. The frame rate is about as consistent as my fucking internet, and the goddamn load times are atrocious. Entering any area, any building, or even dying brings up a load screen that's stupid long. This is unaltered. I just made a simple mistake, and this is how long I have to wait to try again. It sucks. Before I get into the gameplay, I just want to point out that they used all the 2003 voice recordings of these lines, which is like, whatever, but they still didn't get Clancy Brown. You go through all the trouble of building this game from the ground up and still don't even try to add something the original was lacking? That's a major problem I have with this game. The overwhelming commitment to the original really makes this game suffer and feel incredibly dated, like, more so than the original. They refused to make any meaningful changes to the game, and this sucks. They didn't even add any new content that's worth a damn. All the levels are identical to their 2003 counterparts, but with new problems that didn't exist in the original game. For starters, playing the game feels so much slower. SpongeBob, Patrick, and Sandy move so slow and feel incredibly dense and heavy, and when shadows refuse to cooperate from time to time, it makes certain parts of the game even more difficult. These areas were constructed around floatier characters, and some simple jumps are made near impossible by these slightly modified mechanics. All the movements and maneuvers feel so much more restricted. Like, the bubble bash in the original felt so free and loose, and in the remake, you hit your peak height and come to a complete stop. It's nothing huge, but it's little things like this that just add to a more restricted feel to the gameplay. And sometimes, there's details in the environment that you weren't supposed to be able to interact with that exist now, like some of these rock textures in the ground. These stick out of the ground now. Yeah. It looks more realistic, sure, but that affects the collision of the ground and brings about a new challenge and obstacle that didn't exist in the original. This changes how you're able to tackle certain objectives, and at times it isn't for the better. And good luck if you encounter a platform that tilts. I have no clue what's happening or how this got past the developers, but jumping on these seesaw platforms just doesn't give you any height. This is the first level, and this is a major glitch that got past them. That's not a very good indicator for the rest of the game. That's just the first level. The game is full of glitches and bugs. There's so many broken collisions and an overall feeling of jank. Things just do not work as they're supposed to. Even some paths are broken, and certain uncontrollable events will randomly kill you. It's so poorly built. All of these things so far were either an accident or a choice the developers made to make the game feel different. And you know, nothing wrong with that, but I feel like they tried to make all the wrong things different. Like the sliding. One of my favorite parts of the original was absolutely obliterated. For starters, they added this weird fog effect to a lot of them, which I guess would make sense if the original had it that way due to being unable to render things that far ahead, but nope, in the original there's there's nothing like this. They added this. You know how else they ruined sliding? They added collision to some of the things on the track. Like these snowmen you're supposed to plow right through completely halt you for no reason. They didn't do this last time, and this breaks the slide. You can no longer beat the time trial and get all the snowmen in one go. It sucks. And they even made the music quieter. I have not a damn clue why they would do this. They made it even quieter than the rest of the game's audio, and I have no idea why. The sliding music is some of the best the game has to offer, and you can hardly hear it. It really takes away from the epic feeling of the slides. These feel nowhere near as epic anyways. Everything moves so much slower and the heavier jumping still applies and is as bad as ever. I really do not like the sliding in this game. So they'll change something near perfect about the original, but you know what they refuse to fix? Literally anything that would have benefited the game. For one, the worst area in the game, Kelp Forest, is the exact same as previously. All of those horrible sections are still the exact same as they were, with new aforementioned problems with the gameplay. This is one level that really could have used some renovations. If you're gonna build a remake from the ground up, and some things in the original aren't generally seen as very good, why wouldn't you change it? The majority of videos I've seen on Battle for Bikini Bottom state that the Kelp Forest level is their least favorite, including myself. It's so dark and confusing and just flat out poorly designed. It's a shame that they didn't try to make something better. That would have been really cool. Turning the worst level in the original into something completely unique and awesome in the remake, they could have gone crazy and put all the potential new ideas they had in one level. How awesome would that be? They didn't even bother to add any cut content to the game. When they announced the remake, I assumed they would finally bring these thrown away concepts to life, and they just didn't. Where is Patrick's dream? Where is Robot Squidward? Oh wait, here he is. Yeah, the one thing they did add to the game, a multiplayer horde battle mode. This is such a troll. When I saw the Robot Squidward trailer surface, I got so excited and thought they actually added a new boss fight, and could you blame me when thumbnails look like this? And then upon clicking on the video, you realize it was just a way for them to hype up the new multiplayer.
Hey man, that's not cool.
It made me flip shit, only to realize there was some tacked on crappy multiplayer. Seriously, this is the biggest addition to the game? Fighting waves of enemies in multiplayer? So fun. This reeks. They wouldn't even fix the insane knockback that existed in the original game and made a couple parts super annoying, not even smaller things like that. All of these unfixed things make me ask one question: why did they even bother to remake it? The goal of a remake is to bring an old game back into the spotlight, to polish everything up and give it a shiny coat of paint, while keeping what made the original so great intact. I do think they made the game look very good for modern platforms. While it isn't really my thing, it doesn't feel as much like SpongeBob as I would have liked. It's about what you'd expect from a SpongeBob game that came out in 2020. However, they failed to polish the game. It feels so unfinished and untested, even broken at times. This was not something I experienced at all with the original, and here it is as a huge issue. I feel like the gameplay in the original was perfect. They should have just brought those exact mechanics to this game. If they did that with these new visuals, I'd say at the very least it succeeded as a remake. I just really believe that the developers didn't understand what made the original so great to begin with, which was its commitment to old SpongeBob. The game looked like a 3D version of the show, the writing was pretty close to what you'd expect, and the locations all felt straight out of the cartoon. Rehydrated was trying too hard to be a modern day BFBB and wasn't committed to SpongeBob, it was committed to the original game. They didn't try to fix anything that was broken or that people didn't like, they just changed some things to make it different and it did not work. I feel like the game just didn't have a clear enough direction. I think they were trying to make it feel like a modern SpongeBob game, but they also wanted it to be faithful to a classic SpongeBob game. So they update the visuals and tweak the gameplay, but they keep the old writing and level designs exactly as they were, and it comes off feeling like they did everything wrong. You don't change how the game plays but keep the level designs identical, nor do you keep the story and dialogue the same when these characters are clearly not the same as the ones in the original. It feels off. If Rehydrated would have just imported the mechanics, upgraded the character models to look like cleaner versions of their original selves, maybe built the areas from the ground up to look shiny and new, fix a couple annoying sections present in the original and add some of the cut content, it would have been perfect. In that case, they could have just kept the original dialogue and story and I would have no complaints. If you're going to make a video game based on modern SpongeBob, do it. Craft it around the new SpongeBob and make the characters look like that. It would fit and give the developers the creative freedom to build worlds around their game mechanics. In either of these cases, we would be getting a better, more faithful SpongeBob product. As it is now, you shouldn't buy this game. I'm all for supporting similar projects, but I'm sure there's far better ways to do that than buying this. Either way you look at it, it's just not worth it. If you want to play the game at home, you should do so on the original copy. That's for GameCube, Xbox, and PS2. And if you want to play it on the go, it's the worst version of the game, and I don't advise you do that either. I know of a far better portable SpongeBob game that I plan to make a video on at some point, and if it's already done, you can watch it right up there. If you're not interested at all, that's totally cool, but trust me, don't get this game. This game is one of the best platformers of all time, and anyone who remotely likes SpongeBob should give it a try, but this one is a bad remake and should not be purchased. That being said, yes, I bought the Fun Edition, but it was $100 on Prime Day, so I don't want to miss out on that, and comes with a physical sealed copy of the game for PS4 and 3 awesome statues. Honestly, these things are sick. I've had the Patrick one in the backdrop for this entire video. That one's not my favorite, it just fell on that shelf. I've got the SpongeBob and Sandy over here, and while I'm saying this, I'll cut to footage showing them all side by side. But for $100, that's totally worth it, not to mention getting the other goodies and the game. If you're gonna get this remake despite everything I've said, get the Fun Edition while it's on sale. Displaying and looking at the statues is way more enjoyable than the actual game.
Are you sure?
Does this look unsure to you?
No.
Good.
Anyways, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, and if you want to see more and help the channel grow, you should definitely subscribe. It's free for you and means a lot to me. Thank you. After watching this video, what are your thoughts on the game? Did I change any of your perspectives? I'd love to know down in the comments. If you enjoy argumentative videos like the one you just watched, be sure to check out the playlist I've generously linked right there. There's tons of similar stuff in there that I know you'll enjoy. If you've got any feedback or recommendations for me, feel free to drop those in the comments too. I take everything you guys say into consideration. Thank you. Thanks again for watching, everyone. I'll catch you in the next one.